and welcome to Stamp Along with Rubbernecker. I'm using this pine tree stamp set here to create two different scenes using the same stamp set. So we're starting off with this white cardstock here, and this white cardstock that I'm using is a Bristol Smooth white cardstock. I find ink blending very easy on this particular cardstock, and that's the reason I chose it. And I'm using this Swirl stencil, which was released a few months ago, and I'm going to place this over that white cardstock and then hold them using some post-it tape so that the stencil doesn't move on me when I am blending. And I've chosen a few kind of a fall colors, so some oranges and some yellows, some burnt yellows, and then a couple of blues from the top, just so that it looks like a sky. So my idea is to create this fall scene. So I'm just going to add these different colors that I just told you about, and I'm going to blend them from the bottom. The bottom half is going to be the orange and the yellows, and the top half is going to be the blues that I've chosen. So I have like a deeper blue, and then I have a lighter blue that I blended downwards. You can really use any colors that you like if you want to create a fall scene. You can definitely do some reds and add some yellows and oranges, or even a Halloween scene actually. If you added some purples and greens and blacks, or purples from the bottom and black from the top, you could definitely change it to be a Halloween scene. So yeah, the options are endless here. I went with fall scene, and I got the second card, I went with the wintry scene. Anyway, so after I was done blending through the stencil, I took the lighter of the two colors, so the light blue, and I went over it just to mute down that white, stark white that was not colored through the stencil. And then the same thing with the lighter yellow I did on the bottom side. So that kind of muted that stencil down a bit, and it made it look more blended. And then I took this pine tree set here, and I'm going to stamp these trees all over the surface. Here I realized I've put it upside down, and I made sure I'm stamping it in the right direction. So I'm just taking, now I'm taking the pine trees, and I'm taking all different sizes of pine trees, and I'm using a black pigment ink. In this case, it's a VersaFine black pigment ink. You can use any black pigment ink you have, and I'm just going to stamp this over the stencil. Now, the reason I did not do the stamping first and then do the stenciling is because pigment ink takes a while to dry. So if you did the black ink and then the black trees, and then you went ahead and did the stenciling and the blending, I'm almost positive the black ink will smudge. I have even tried this. Trust me, I've done this, and that's why I'm telling you not to do it. I have done it even after drying the pigment ink. It still smudges. It just, I don't know, something about that ink is just that it doesn't dry up that easily. Though it dries to the touch, but it doesn't dry on the paper itself. I hope it makes sense. So do it the other way. Do the stenciling first and then stamp on it. And I think that makes it look much better too once you do it this way. Anyway, so I'm just stamping away all these different trees from the bottom up. I'm kind of creating a forest scene, not really a very dense forest, but kind of a forest scene here. And I'm using, as I said, different sizes of pine trees here, and I'm just adding it in different places. And once I'm done stamping, which will be very soon here, I'm almost done. Just taking the last bit of the last one of the pine trees here, and I'm just going to stamp stamp it. And sometimes I had to stamp it once, sometimes once was good enough, just depending upon how much pressure I added. And here, now that I was done, it was time to add some shading underneath the trees. Now, if I didn't add shading underneath these trees would look like they're floating in air. I wanted to ground them. In order to ground them, I added some gray colors. So I just took some C5, blended it with C3 and some C1. I was very careful as to not to let my Copic nibs touch the black of the pigment ink, because it will pull the ink. I very carefully went over the surface where the oxide, it didn't really matter with the oxide inks. I didn't see any problem with my Copic markers. I think for smaller images like this, smaller blending like this, it's okay. I wouldn't do it on a larger scale though. Something little like this is okay. But anyway, I'm just grounding those trees now. Now that I have done all that, I am going to take the sentiment which reads, I took a walk in the woods and came out taller than the trees. It's really a cute, beautiful sentiment here, and I'm just going to add that, which I have already gone ahead and stamped and embossed onto a black cardstock, and I'm adhering that in that open space in the middle using some foam adhesive. And then it's time to add some you know me, some jewel stone. I don't know why. I mean, I think anytime you add gemstones, it just takes the card to the next level. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I just like to do it anyway. Just added some iridescent gemstones all over the surface, and I'm taking about a 1/4 inch just on the right side. And when I was doing that, I realized there is a gemstone, but the gemstone had not yet dried on the glue, so I was able to move it a bit and then cut the cardstock. Now I'm going to take a white note card, a top folding note card, and I'm going to adhere this to the edge, the left edge, so there'll be a tiny white sliver seen on the right side, just to add some extra interest to the card on the top of the card. And then I added some foam tapes behind that cardstock, the blended cardstock that we just created, and I'm going to adhere that, as I said, I'm going to butt it to the left side, left edge, and I'm just going to adhere it. And that finished the first card. For the second card, I went with a craft note card. This is a slimline note card, which means to say I have cut this cardstock to 3.5 by 8.5 tall, and I'm going to start placing my trees just like I did for the previous card, but this time I'm going in a diagonal way, you know. So I'm just starting off from the left, but then keeping the other two sets of trees on the right side. So I'm not doing another one on the left, just kind of building it up from the left going upwards to the right. It makes sense as I'm stamping here. And I did the same thing again, chose a few different trees in different styles. This set has quite a bit of trees in them, and you can use them all in different varying heights and even thicknesses of how far the trees branches go out. I hope that makes sense. And I'm just going to place them. And I just wanted to show you that even though these are just basic pine trees, you can literally take them and make any kind of scene you want with them. Like I did in the previous one, it's a fall. And as I said earlier, you could do a Halloween theme. You could do Christmas. Like, though this card here that I'm making is a wintry scene, but it's not a Christmas card, but you can easily turn it into a Christmas card. You can make that same wintry scene and add a Christmas sentiment. And this card came to be so quick. I mean, I could make them so quick. Usually, trust me, making a card takes me hours and hours and hours. I speed up these videos. I do a lot of editing, so it doesn't seem that way, but they do. But this card was super easy, and I can tell you, you can make this as a mass-producing card for Christmas, simple and easy, but yet elegant. Anyway, after I was done stamping, I just took that Copic marker. In this case, now I've taken a C3 marker, and I'm just drawing some snowbanks, some drifts, just where some of the tree stumps are. I'm just kind of placing the banks just around those, and just creating different levels of snowdrifts in this panel. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to add the shadow once more under these trees. Remember, you want to ground these trees. You don't want them to be floating up in the air. Those small details make a big difference in a very simple card like these. Anyway, so I'm just adding and blending it with C3, C1, and then with C0. And here I'm taking a white pigment ink, and I'm taking a sponge dauber, and I'm just kind of pouncing that white ink under those drifts where I've drawn the lines for the drifts, just underneath it, just to show some snow on this surface. So this card is very much neutral colors, I would say, like the craft and the black and the whites. And I love that combination of crafts and blacks and whites. Something about that just looks stunning. And even red on craft looks beautiful. Anyway, so I'm just pouncing away this pigment ink all over the surface just to make it look like snow. And it really, I mean, this card turned out so beautiful. Between the two, I think this was my favorite. And once I was done with that, I needed to add more snow. So I took my white gouache and my fan brush, and I'm just going to splatter the snow all over the surface. And I really went heavy-handed because I wanted it to look like a really blistery, snowy day. I don't know if you remember, I just moved from Minneapolis to North Carolina, and I think I'm going to miss all that snow that we have in Minneapolis, because I hear here in North Carolina there's not much snow. So definitely going to miss that, and definitely going to probably miss the white Christmas too. Anyway, so I'm going to add a sentiment, but I also have taken this die cut smile sentiment, and I've die cut it using white cardstock, and I'm going to place that above this sentiment. And this sentiment reads, between every two pines is a doorway to a new world. Now this stamp set has some really nice phrases, and these phrases, it's fun to combine it with your other sentiments to create a card that you could give as an encouragement to something. So this card would read, smile, between every two pines is a doorway to a new world. So it's kind of a giving hope to someone. And then at the bottom, I'm also going to add another additional sentiment, which I'm just making sure I add the tittle to the smile up there. And the bottom, I'm going to add another additional sentiment from Darling Dahlia set, which is this one right here. And I'm saying, you are loved. And I'm going to add that using some foam adhesive. And now you can see how this entire sentiment reads together. And that pretty much completed the card. The only thing that was left was to add some blinks. Now this is not really gemstones. What I'm using is dewdrops, which almost look like snowballs, and I just scattered them all through the surface. And I'm going to put this on this white note card. Now these slimline note cards are available in the Rubbernecker store, so make sure if you don't have some of that, grab a few. These are really handy especially when you're going to make a slimline card. And then I'm going to adhere this directly onto that note card, and that pretty much completed that card. You can see how beautiful this card looks, and here is the second one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.